what would be the best option?
So if you're leasing it, maybe like monthly payments, which should be cheaper, like for you in the beginning. In the long run, probably not, but it'll be more affordable if you're tight on money.
Right. So if I lease, right, I can have usually smaller payments. Equipment, they upgrade, they get something newer. If they don't need the equipment, it's pretty easy. You just give it up and you're done. So that's the good part about leasing. There is a bit of a downside to it. And the majority of people, when it comes to vehicles, equipment, and all that kind of stuff, the majority of people tend to lease products at the beginning of their life cycle. At the beginning of their life cycle. So this is where they're leasing those products. What is the problem with that when it comes to expense?
Well, like towards the end, you're going to be paying so much more because of the cost of borrowing.
Possibly, but remember that products typically depreciate in value. Equipment depreciates in value. So if we have the life of a product like a car, when it's brand new, right? So this is value. And this is time. So if we buy anything, a golf cart, a piece of machinery, an air conditioner, a car, the majority of the depreciation is taking place at the front end of the life cycle of the product. Okay? Now, when it comes to overall reliability of a product, products go through 3 phases of their life, and it's what we call the bathtub curve. So the bathtub curve over time looks a little something like this. If you can use your imagination, it's an upside down bathtub. So what does that mean? Well, this is the bathtub curve here. And over time, if you ever looked into, say, a new model year for a car, and they'll say, hey, the brand new Ford Escape is out, or the brand new F-150 is out, or whatever. And you say to your friends, are you thinking of buying one? And a lot of people commonly say, oh no, I won't buy the first year model. I'll wait till they work the bugs out of it, right? And they'll buy the second year, the third year. People are reluctant to buy the first year there's a major model change with a car, with anything, a television, doesn't matter. The reason for that is the product is in this zone here, and we call that the phase of infancy. And that's where the product is still evolving, perhaps as an infant. They're still evolving, and ultimately that product is going to reach a point of stability where they've worked all the bugs out of it and so forth, right? We then have a relatively comfortable lifespan with that product over a period of maybe 2/3 of its lifespan, right? And then if you've ever had an old car, you'll find that towards the end of the lifespan of that vehicle, you're putting nothing but money into it. The transmission goes, so you fix that. Then the engine goes, so you fix that. Okay? You purchase a new fuel pump for it, and that goes. So it's in a state of what we call decline. All right? So it's in what we call a state of decline. You can see here, if I superimpose those two graphs, the value of that product and the bathtub curve, we discover there's sort of a crossing point somewhere around here. Where those two cross is perhaps considered the optimal point in time to buy something in its life cycle. You are maximizing its level of depreciation as it starts to ascend into a period of stability. So what does that mean? Well, in cases like vehicles, any type of mass-produced machinery, well, actually, most machinery, that mark is around the 2-year mark. This is around 2 years. So let's say this is 10 years. It's telling us that to purchase equipment, the best balance between cost, depreciation, and reliability is to purchase something after it's suffered the brunt of its depreciation, but entering the period of its stability. And that is more or less around the 2-year mark. So if I'm looking at a car, let's say I start a company and I'm looking to buy a, like standard white delivery van, right? And I go to the store and I look at a brand new van. The van's gonna run me $40,000 in payments going to be high whether I purchase it or lease it. If on the other hand, I observe the theory of the bathtub curve, I'm out on the market looking for a 2-year-old vehicle. It's almost as good as a brand new vehicle. To your average customer, they can't tell the difference. But I'm only paying $22,000 for it, or $23,000. There's a big difference. The nice thing about it, I don't have to put up with the new car headaches that people have. How many people here know somebody that's bought a brand new vehicle and 3 weeks later they're towing it back to the dealership? It just doesn't start, right? Why? Because it's in a state of infancy. And in a state of infancy, it will have problems until the bugs are worked out. Okay. Now, here's something interesting with the bathtub curve. It works for simple machinery and it works for complicated machinery. How many of you have purchased a 99-cent light bulb, screwed it in, turned it on, pop, and it blows on you? You say, God damn it, the thing blew. Are you guys done back there? Can this be your last warning, please? I find you very distracting back there.
No, it's 7.
You guys have been talking incessantly since
I haven't
you
said a
came.
word.
Yes, you have.
Oh, okay.
All right? So keep it down, please. If you need to chat, take 5 minutes, go outside and chat, but don't do it in here, please. This is not a social center. Please. All right. So, how many of you have, as I said, bought a 4-pack of light bulbs, you screw one in, how the thing blows, and you say, God damn it, I've got a bulb in here, and then you take another one, you screw it in, and it lasts for a while. And then it goes through its stage of stability, and then it starts flickering, and you know the bulb's on its decline, right? Ultimately, the bulb fails, the life of the bulb is over, and needs to be replaced. So something as simple as a bulb follows the bathtub curve theory, but then we get a very complicated machinery. What's the most complicated machine man's ever built so far? Well, we can debate which one is
A
more
supercomputer?
complicated than the other.
Supercomputer?
Maybe.
I don't know.
It's currently out of service. The space shuttle.
Hmm.
The space shuttle today, well, we can take it to the International Space Station, but that's kind of just a floating tin can out there. The space shuttle is a very complicated piece of machinery. Did it follow in its life expectancy of 30 years? Did the space shuttle follow the bathtub curve? Did it follow it religiously? And how did it do that? What happened in 1986? So in its stage of infancy, when it was a relatively new piece of machinery, what happened in 1986? January, February, I think it was January 1986. What happened to the shuttle program? Does anybody remember?
I don't think anyone was alive.
You weren't alive.
Wasn't it just in a big bubble and then that bubble burst? Like the space exploration at that time just grew very stagnant? I don't know.
Kind of, but the space shuttle was in its infancy stage. They needed to work the bugs out. And the Challenger, which is one of the space shuttles, the Challenger took off, right? In 1986, in that phase of infancy, they hadn't worked the bugs out. One of the solid rocket boosters exploded for various technical reasons. It wasn't sealed properly. And so it exploded and the whole thing blew off about 30 seconds after liftoff. If you go on the internet and Google Challenger disaster, you can see it explode. So it was in that perfect stage of infancy. Went along through a stage of stability. And in a stage of stability, they had approximately 60 missions. And then in 2003, you guys were alive then. Anybody remember what happened in 2003 over here? It was in a state of decline.
NASA shut down?
No, NASA's still around. What
Someone else
happened in
blew up?
2003?
Someone else blew up.
Didn't blow up, it fell apart. Columbia. So now, this thing is what? 20 years old, something like that. It's getting old. Columbia on return to the Earth literally fell apart, right? And the space shuttle was ultimately retired after that. But it's curious that something as complicated as the space shuttle followed the bathtub curve religiously. It actually followed it very, very closely. And so, what do we learn from that? It's very difficult to escape the laws of the bathtub curve. But we can use it to our advantage by looking at this sweet spot here. And if we're ever going to go out and start a business and buy things, my recommendation to you is if you get a hell of a good lease deal, that's a possibility. But just remember, when you're leasing something, the lower the payments, the higher the buyout is, and you may not be able to afford that buyout. So what's the other option? Buy used. Buy used. And if you buy used, and you follow this theory, in simple terms, look years old, it will have a very, very good life expectancy. As a matter of fact, it will be just entering its phase of stability, okay? And so the bathtub curve tells us that buying used versus leasing is financially the most optimal model to follow, all right? So just keep that in mind as you look at various pieces of equipment in the future. And it works for personal purchases as well. You know, buying a 2-year-old car for yourself is probably the best deal as opposed to buying. All right? Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on the different business setups because I wanted to move on to other things here, but you can give this some thought depending on what your project entails. You're going to be looking at different aspects, different efficiency challenges, different equipment challenges in whatever you put together. So you can read through these PowerPoints. They just, and your textbook talks about the different challenges for different things like manufacturing, for example. Zoning is a challenge. Equipment is a challenge. Layout of equipment is a challenge. The facility is a challenge. The environment's a challenge. Those are all things that you need to set up when you get into things like manufacturing. Okay? Now, there's a diagram in your book that I don't really care too much for. And consequently, I'm going to introduce you to an alternate way of managing complicated projects, and we call that the Gantt chart. Okay? Anybody